Sarah Silverman has always been a loud, unapologetic voice in comedy. Sharp, controversial, sometimes divisive, but always real. But recently, her voice has taken on a different tone. It's still her voice, still humorous, still biting. But now it carries something else. Grief. And not just any grief. We're talking about a sorrow that reaches decades into her family's past. A sorrow she didn't even know she was carrying until she learned a shocking truth. In a recent interview, Silverman revealed that her father, Donald Silverman, had disclosed something utterly devastating. Her infant brother, Jeffrey, who died before she was born, didn't pass from natural causes. He was killed. And even more horrifying, the person responsible was her own grandfather. Let that sink in for a second. This isn't some obscure family drama that surfaced through a third cousin at a reunion. This was her father looking her in the eye and telling her that his father had caused the death of his son, her brother. For most people, something like this would be a skeleton hidden in a dark attic, never to be spoken about. But Sarah Silverman, in her own way, brought it to the stage. In her new Netflix special Postmortem, where she processes grief through comedy, she turned pain into art, trauma into material. But this particular revelation, it wasn't even in the special. It came up later, in a podcast interview, almost as a footnote in a wider discussion about grief and family. And that's what makes it so haunting. It wasn't crafted for a punchline or positioned as a dramatic drop. It just came out, raw, unfiltered, and real. You could hear it in her voice. Even now, she's still grappling with the full weight of what it means. Sarah never met Jeffrey. He died before she was born. For most of her life, his name was more of a shadow than a story, someone she was vaguely aware of. A family loss, a tragedy, a sad footnote. And then, out of nowhere, it transforms from a quiet family sadness into a dark, violent act. Suddenly, Jeffrey isn't just a name, he's a victim. And her family history isn't just complicated. It's tragic in a way that can't be neatly explained. She didn't elaborate on the details. There was no courtroom case, no medical files being brought into the light. Just her father, telling her one of the most painful truths a person can tell their child. That your grandfather, someone she grew up knowing, someone who shaped the very DNA of the family, was responsible for killing your sibling. Now let's pause and think about the emotional layers here. Her father didn't just lose a son. He lost a son to the hands of his own father. That's the kind of pain that rewrites your brain chemistry. That's trauma sitting deep in your bones. And when you think about that kind of history, passed down through silence, through avoidance, through unspoken shame, it starts to make sense why Postmortem resonates so differently. It's not just a comedy special about grief. It's about confronting ghosts no one warned you about, and it makes you think, how many families are carrying generational wounds that no one's talking about? Silverman's comedy has always been rooted in the uncomfortable. She's made jokes that poked at religion, politics, gender, racism, no topic too taboo. But this is different. This isn't her critiquing the world. This is her excavating her own lineage. This is her looking inward, not outward. And she's not just cracking jokes, she's digging through silence, through guilt, through memory. The timing of the revelation, too, is uncanny. In Postmortem, she talks about the recent death of her father and stepmother, both of whom passed away in 2023. Her father was a larger-than-life presence in her comedy. Fans knew him as Schleppy, a crass, hilarious, lovable old guy who would pop up in her sketches and interviews. And now, just after he's gone, he leaves her with this, a final confession, a truth she now has to carry, alone. It's easy to imagine the kind of psychological ripple this creates. You spend your life loving your dad, grateful for the way he supported you, made you laugh, even played along in your comedy career. And then, after he's gone, you realize he was carrying a pain no one ever saw. A burden so massive that it took his entire life just to say it out loud. It makes you question everything. Who he was, what he went through, and what else you might never know. And Sarah, being Sarah, didn't bottle it up. She shared it. Not because she wanted sympathy, but because sharing is how she copes, how she processes, how she connects. For someone who's built a career on being brutally honest, sometimes to a fault, it tracks. She doesn't hide the messy stuff. She walks right into it. And she invites us to walk with her. But even as she shares it, you can tell she's still trying to wrap her head around it. The kind of crime that doesn't just make you sad, it makes you question the moral fabric of your own family. Was her grandfather mentally ill? Was it intentional? Was it an accident covered up by denial? No one knows. There's no neat conclusion. Just a dangling horror, a bruise in the family history that may never fully heal. For years, Sarah has been someone who used shock as a tool. She'd deliver the most inappropriate lines with a deadpan face, forcing you to laugh and flinch at the same time. But this revelation is a shock of a different kind. It's not designed to provoke. It's simply the truth. And it changes how we see her. It makes the snark feel more human, the sarcasm feel earned. There's a moment in Postmortem where she says that finding humor in grief is like trying to laugh while bleeding. It's not always possible. Sometimes the laughter is a bandage, not a cure. And hearing about her brother's death and what caused it, you understand why that metaphor isn't just poetic. It's literal. This isn't just about grief. It's about inherited pain. Pain passed down not just through genetics, but through silence. And in a way, this is a story about silence, about the things we don't say, about how families, especially older generations, bury their traumas so deep that they become myths, ghosts. Sarah has spent her entire career talking loudly, talking rudely, talking boldly. But now she's doing something even harder. She's listening. She's listening to the silence her father finally broke. And she's trying to make sense of what comes next. It's hard to imagine what it would feel like to live with this knowledge, that your brother's life ended before it really began, and that the person responsible was a blood relative. What do you do with that? Do you forgive? Do you investigate? Do you try to preserve the good memories of your grandfather? Or do you let them rot with the truth? For Sarah, there's no simple answer. And maybe that's what makes her so relatable. Right now. Because we're all in some way carrying the weight of our families. Their choices, their secrets, their mistakes. And when someone like Sarah, someone with a platform, with fame, with the ability to reach millions, chooses to open up about the ugliest truth in her family history, it gives all of us permission to look at our own. This isn't about cancel culture. It's not about scandal. It's about humanity. It's about what happens when the people we love the most turn out to be more complicated than we imagined. It's about grieving people you never met and reconciling with people you thought you knew. In the end, what Silverman has done, whether intentionally or not, is show us that the line between comedy and tragedy isn't just thin. Sometimes it disappears completely. Sometimes the joke is just a cry for help, and sometimes the punchline never comes. And in those moments, all we can do is sit with the discomfort. Let it wash over us. Let it teach us something. Maybe that's the real legacy of Postmortem, not the laughs, but the honesty. The willingness to take us into the darkest corners of grief and say, I'm still here, I don't have the answers, but I'm still here. And that, more than any one-liner, is the most powerful thing Sarah Silverman has ever said. Because when the laughter fades and the lights go down, What we're left with is this: a woman who lost a brother she never knew, a father she loved, and a sense of safety in the stories she grew up believing. And instead of hiding, she stood on a stage and shared it all. That's not comedy. That's courage.